virtual learning adjustments for 2 courses. Mr. Day.
Okay, so I just want to introduce John. I just want to say, sorry, John. I apologize. No, that's okay. So John is here to do a couple of things this evening, and one of them is to talk about some changes we've had to make just to 2 courses to take into consideration things. I put virtual learning, and that may have been a misnomer. It's a little bit more that there are certain activities we can't engage in right now due to COVID restrictions. So I just wanted to say that because the virtual piece might be a little misleading. Sorry, John, go ahead.
No, that's actually accurate and just where I was gonna. Sorry, I'm having a.
While John gets situated, may I ask a question? You said there were 2 courses that were not, you said it was not really distance learning, but that you were precluded from activities. Can you give us more detail on that? I mean, that's it.
Sorry, triangle.
I'll jump into what John was going to do, but one of them is one of our, okay, go ahead. Okay. You're frozen on our screen.
Yeah, sorry. I got the triangle and dropped out.
Okay.
So tonight I was going to bring forward 2 adjustments to courses that are going to be needed as a result of some programmatic changes that happen. The first was for our child development program at Enfield High. Can you see my desktop now?
No.
I believe so.
Oh, I can't. Okay, go ahead.
You can see the desktop now, Michelle?
I can't, but if they can, go ahead, because I already know what you're talking about.
Okay. So I am going to just pull up a document. In our are you seeing a child development lab document?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
All right. So in our child development, we have 2 courses that run at Enfield High School. One is Child Development Lab 1 and Child Development Lab 2. Typically in these programs, we would have our students engaged in this program working with students in a kind of a preschool setting, and they're gaining experience by working with students. So they're studying child development practices, and they are gaining experience in working with children by running essentially a small daycare at Enfield High. Because of changes in practices and the concern about bringing small children into the school, we had to abandon the daycare just for this year. It is something that we will hope to bring back as soon as the conditions allow. As a result, we need some additional resources in order to support the learning both in the classroom and asynchronously. So one of the pieces we were looking to utilize is they are using a textbook for parenting and child development. We were looking to purchase the online learning suite, essentially companion resources for the text, which will be used to help the students study for the course. It's really going to offer the teachers ability to have some assessments that they can push to the students through our LMS, which is Teams. There are some presentations, PowerPoints, quizzes, flashcard activities, and other things that will support the text resource, and will be able to have the part of either their synchronous or asynchronous instruction for the students to make up for some of the instruction lost or the experiences they would gain in the child development lab. So it's not a text itself. It is a companion resource for the text to fill in some of the time that would normally be spent in the child development lab. So it's something we're looking to add in to support their text. Are there any questions on the resource?
Is this just providing us information about the resource itself, or is it that's for us to approve?
It was really just providing you information on the resource. It's just an example of a modification we've made for it. It's not a textbook itself, which we would normally have approved. It's just letting you know of a change that we've had to make as a result of not being able to run the lab.
Okay. And if I may ask a follow-up question.
Sure.
What is once again, please, the name of the class?
Yep, it is Parenting and Child Development Lab 1 and Child Development Lab 2.
So it's Parenting and Child Development Lab 1 and 2? Is that correct?
Child Development Lab 1, Child Development Lab 2, yep. And they may use the resource in Parenting and Child Development as well.
Okay.
And this would only be a short-term resource, because once we can get back to offering the in-person experiences with the preschool children, obviously that is the more desired way to run this course. So it's kind of just a little filler for them right now to make sure that they can, that they're supported fully in the class and that they can get all the information and learning that they need.
Okay, and
Can you explain what this? Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Thank you. I'm seeing the highlighted text, online student workbook. So this workbook is available individually to each of the students?
Yeah, we'd
online?
be purchasing essentially a site license for it.
Okay.
So the students, we already have the text. This is merely a companion resource for the text that's already in use.
Okay, so truly companion website and the workbook are one and the same almost, right?
The companion website has some additional, more interactive materials. So the student work, that might be things like matching activities, self-assessment quiz, post-test assessments where the students kind of get some of the scoring back immediately. So if they, answer a question and they want the feedback on it, they can click on the link and, get the correct response. So as a kind of an option for them to self-check prior to in-class assessments.
Okay.
You can go ahead. My question was along the same lines.
Okay. The other change is in our, if you're seeing Earth, Human Impact, and Natural Disasters, in grade 4, our STEAM curriculum, we actually have 2 embedded units that's grade 4 studies. And one is energy collisions, and the other unit is energy and conversions. Now, these units are typically about 10 weeks each if you were teaching it every day. Because of the way we have our STEAM instruction structured, the 2 units usually covers the entire year. One of the units, energy and collisions, is really aligned kind of to the 4th grade science standards, which is talking about how energy is converted through mechanical motion. The students end up creating an activity where they design a vehicle that goes down a ramp, and they're trying to design a vehicle that can withstand impact. That unit requires the use of VEX kits, and these kits are kind of like what you could imagine like an erector set, but with plastic components that link together, and they allow the students to kind of build their ramps and cars for protecting an occupant, which in this case is an egg. In many ways, it's similar to the activity we showed last year for 6th grade science with the egg drop, but this is more of designing a vehicle structure. So that lab, because of the shared materials, becomes impractical due to what would be needed to clean, sanitize, and the limited amount of equipment we have in the classrooms. We couldn't give each student the equipment in order to do it individually. So we're looking to have kind of a 1-year change to that unit. And that would be a new unit that was actually just developed through Project Lead the Way, and that was Earth, Human Impact, and Natural Disasters. This unit doesn't require nearly as much tangible material, and a lot of the projects embedded in it are things that can be done at home with upcycled material. It looks a little dark. My lights just went off. I'll turn them back on in a minute. They learn in this unit about some of the natural resources in the environment, how to reduce impact, and they work on designing an upcycled project They're also investigating in natural disasters and what would be needed to mitigate them. And in one of the challenges, they're designing a emergency preparedness kit. So students are still engaged in the design process. In this one, however, they're more kind of globally studying the impacts of humans on the Earth. It's a little bit less of a hands-on, tangible type unit, and it's one that could be facilitated by students who are, or it'd be easier to facilitate with students who are either fully remote or are working on the projects asynchronously at home. So this is a kind of a 1-year substitution of units from Project Lead the Way. Generally by the entire Project Lead the Way, when we adopted the program, we kind of approved all units, but this is just kind of bringing this to your attention that we are making a change in grade 4 in order to accommodate the reduced use of technology.
And only grade 4 requires it?
This unit is best fits for grade 4. We were grade 5. We're making a small change as well. There, it's we're not using Lego robotics, but we have a good online companion for that. But this unit is the one. This one in particular is kind of a little bit of a larger change. That one is specifically for grade 4.
Do we say we were under normal conditions? Would we have anything related to this particular subject that's up on the screen being taught at all, or does the 10-week CAR program, is this strictly a substitute for that?
So this concept is taught in the is impacted in grade 4 in different ways. Grade 4 has a unit on erosion, and in that unit they talk about the impacts of natural disasters there as well, so it ties back to the science standards. It also ties back to some of the engineering design challenges in there. So if, for example, if you're working on a unit on earthquakes, one of the activities is developing a system that could deflect if like a boulder or something came down. So it's along the same vein in that it still supplements our science curriculum. It's just supplementing a different area. Originally, when we had worked on that energy collisions and conversions, that first one tied into a similar science unit where students were taking and measuring collisions using marbles or spheres of different weights as one of their performance tasks. It was just more of a real world example of it, as where in the science curriculum itself, it was more of just the concept of it. So in the STEAM class, they're taking that same concept, but they're applying it within context of a real world challenge. Essentially designing a crash structure for protecting occupants of a car.
I just asked because I think this is a kind of a interesting and unique subject that is definitely a great idea for students to understand and learn with the environmental impact and natural disasters and everything else. I mean, always one of the hottest topics in our society, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is also touched in science. When you look at the NGSS assessment, some of the sample questions actually relate directly to this. One of the ones is actually looking at flood erosion that happened after Superstorm Sandy, and it talks about the design considerations that you would make for designing a beachfront home now. Like what would the effect of the house, and how would it be protected if you were to put it up on stilts? Would you still, consider building in the same area, and so on? So it does relate directly to 4th grade science standards. They do see some of that in their regular science curriculum. It's just this unit just fits well for the instruction needed this year.
Great.
If I may, I have a couple of additional questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Is this the course? Is this the material that was recommended by Project Lead the Way to replace the other material? Or is there an option like, oh, you get these 5 or 6 or however many different options,
Sure,
and then somebody makes the choice?
There are 7 units available to us. We made the 2 unit choices for energy conversions and collisions based on assessment of where we recognized there was the most need for reinforcement or improvement when we originally selected those. There were topics that we felt and had some feedback from staff were the 2 areas that they felt least comfortable supporting. So we chose those 2 units, so energy conversions and collisions, as the units to have in STEAM because it would best support the regular classroom instruction. This actual suggestion came from our STEAM teachers who have now have a couple of years of experience, and they felt that this unit is the one with our current schedule and with they could best support. So this suggestion came directly from the teachers.
Is there any opportunity, following up on Jonathan's question or statement, is there any opportunity for, even independently, it doesn't have to be a presentation here, to see in more detail what actually is being presented? I mean, it's such an interesting material. Is there an opportunity for us or individually, if we so desire, to?
I can't, because of a vendor license agreement, I cannot present it in public because it would be we have a vendor license agreement for not displaying the content of the curriculum. This statement is kind of the public one, but there is review if you're going to have time to review the material. I could have the teachers give access in order to review more of what's in it.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I know I'm personally interested.
Okay. So those are the 2. Were there any other questions on the adoption of this unit temporarily?
No other questions from me.
Okay.
I'm all set as well.
So that completes item 3. Jonathan, would you like me to move on to 4?
Yes, you can move on to 4, sample revised curriculum.
Okay.
I just want to jump in. I want to jump in for 1 second. Earlier in the spring or the beginning of the summer, I don't remember which, I'm sorry. You had asked if there'd be an opportunity to see some of the curriculum revisions that I was reporting on. So we're bringing you one example of it. I had discussed how curriculum writing was taking into account different models of instruction, and some revisions were being made for that. And so we brought you an example of that tonight. So this is per your request to see something, if that's okay.
Right, thank you.
So this is working in our district curriculum guide. What we're looking at is structures and properties of matter for grade 2. So over the summer, grades K, 1, and 2 had curriculum revision in order to incorporate a new science resource we had purchased last year, which was Mystery Science. Mystery Science is an online curriculum supplement that takes and initiates a lesson by having an engaging phenomena that the students are using to relate the science to. So we had groups of teachers from our schools work on revising and embedding that resource into the curriculum document. So much of the document that you're seeing at the initial stages was actually written a few years ago. There were some modifications to it to include texts that were purchased, were included in the STEAM cart, identify some materials that will be used in order to support some of the activities within there. And a lot of those are on Imagineering carts in the rooms. There may still need to be some modifications to the activities based on restrictions on shared material use in the classroom. But overall, many of these enhancements can be used moving forward, not just as a result of changes in schedule this year. So in this unit, we're looking at studying structures and property of matters. We have our correlations to our standards. And in grade 2, we're trying to get across the major concept of how we were describing matter and how can matter be changed. And we want them to walk away with the knowledge that everything is made of matter and can change. Their properties may change. Not all matter changes in the same way. Some changes are reversible, some are not. And changes occur and affect our surroundings. So just a reminder, in the science curriculum, it's kind of working on 3-year cycles that build upon one another. So if they're seeing this in 2nd grade, they're going to expand on this more in 5th. They're going to expand on this more in 8th, and they're going to expand on it more when they get to chemistry and physics in high school. So we're looking at some major concepts in the structures and property of matter. At this level, they're just getting to the point where they're saying different kinds of matter exist. And it can be solid, liquid, or depending on the temperature. Matter can be described and classified by its observed properties. And then it begins to talking about the applications of it, in that different properties are suited to different purposes. And you can build a great variety of objects can build up from a small set of pieces. It gets into basic chemical reactions, and so on. So our skills are identified over here, and most of this is things that were already in the curriculum. Where we made the changes is in beginning to take and link in resources. So I have this just working on the desktop, so it won't link directly to some of the resource folders for the assessment, but I'll show you some of the online links. So when we click on something, it's going to take us to our Mystery Science Embedded object. So it will be a place where they can start the activity with the students, and it's something that they can screen share with their students. So they can, when they go through, it'll show them an example of a phenomena. It'll have pauses built in time for them to have questions back and forth with the students. And they're using it to engage with the phenomena to start, and then as a guide for collaborative sense making. Because at this level, we're not trying to just explain to them the concept. We're trying to have them build up as a group a understanding of that concept based on observations they have in the classroom. So going back to the document, you can see we have all of these hyperlinks embedded as far as our assessment and other pieces. When we get down to instruction, we have our pacing, and we have our standards that we're aligning to. But we have essentially, it's structured with a kickoff lesson, your whole group exploration activity, and your whole group mini lessons. We have distance learning. We just highlighted it for sake of presenting for tonight, but as some of these, the distance learning activities are called out for how that could be worked out if students are working at home. So for instance, in this kickoff lesson, they're talking about the concept that all things are made up of smaller pieces, right? Getting them into that beginning, thinking about the building blocks of matter, atoms, more abstractly, right? But they have a 20 Lego brick build activity, and they realize that they can build, many hundreds or thousands of different things with those 20 different pieces. Then there's a whole group exploration activity. It says, could you build a house on paper? And they could, click on the link, and it's going to take them right to another quick 12-minute lesson. And then there's an activity that moves along with that. There's an engineering challenge, which is a paper challenge. And they have in here, this activity can be presented by the teacher, and the paper tower challenge could be completed at home or during a live meeting on Microsoft Teams. So going through each of the portions of the curriculum in several week units, you can see we have this structure of a kickoff, an exploration activity, a whole group mini lesson, and then we move in kind of into our next concept. Kickoff lesson. They have a book in this case that they're using. They would essentially be a read aloud by the teacher, and there's questions that they'd be asking going through. So it could be presented by the teachers and completed by students at home. They have an exploration activity. Then as they're moving through, their kickoff lesson for the next week's activity, and now they have a performance task. All right, so why do we wear clothes? And in this one, students are designing a hat that helps them stay cool. So students will work on a couple things like working about the absorbency. There's activities in there for trying to make sure it could reflect heat away using foil or so on. So, sorry, that was back to the clothes. That was actually referred back to as the performance task. Sorry, we have the Mad Hatter is a response page. That's one of the pieces that can be sent home and then into their next topic. So one of the books they would start reading off is, do you really want to skate on thin ice? Again, questions that could be used to facilitate the discussion within the class. And then just another whole group activity. In their mini lesson, the changing states of matter is a video that they can embed, and they have something that the teacher would share. And then they have questions embedded for after the video. And the questions are really meant to just start discussion. A lot of times they move off, and the questioning may change as they explore chains of thought, or they try and get a consensus among the students about, do they believe it happens for this reason or that reason, and work through that process with them. And then moving on, you can see that the whole group mini lesson for that and the whole group exploration activity. And in here, we've also embedded all of the videos. So this one is on Safe YouTube, but it's talking about glass, which is a solid, but how its properties change by heating, right? And it becomes a flexible, malleable solid. Or, well, not really solid, amorphous material at that point. So it talks about glass, metal, so on. And then another mystery science activity. And then as a reference for the teacher, the academic vocabulary. So this is one of 4 units of instruction for science in grade 2 that were revised over the summer. Almost all of the work follows a very similar format where we have it broken down by weeks. The activities are tied back to a standard. There is a whole group kind of initiating activity, your mini lesson, and then a group exploration, which may have an individual activity component if the students are home. So that's an example of some of the work that was done over the summer. So this was really taking and embedding some online resources in for the students, embedding in documents that would be common among all teachers at the grade level, and embedding in video resources that can be used for instruction for the whole group. And in some cases, video resources, like for example, the one through Safe YouTube, that could be used as a reference or discussion for students asynchronously.
Any questions?
Yes, if I may. Do any of the different activities are any of them specifically targeting when the students are in the classroom or when the students are at home, or can all of them be taught in either setting?
So some of them, so like the Lego activity, the initiating one, I think in most cases students have Legos. Sorry, I might have gone too far. That could be facilitated. It would have to be at school. That would be a little bit harder because of the shared use of equipment right now. But most of them use materials that are likely available at home to students, and substitutions could be used. So if you look at the materials that are used to embed in the activity, most of them are fairly common, such as index cards, but they could be stiff paper, could be paper clip, ruler, scissors, books, plastic bags, aluminum foil, clothespins, so on, string. Ideally, these activities would work well having the whole group together using it, but modifications will be made this year to support them at home as needed. So that materials used in the activity might need to change if a student doesn't have something available.
Well, that's going to
Okay.
lead to. Oh, Bill, go ahead.
Well, what I was, I understand about the materials. I was just wondering if, in fact, as the new curriculum was being developed, and again, maybe I missed an explanation you already provided, and if so, I apologize for that. But I was wondering if the curriculum being developed now has more explicit indications, guidelines, directions for the teachers as to this particular unit, activity, lesson, whatever is better suited for when you're doing the instruction remotely or when they are in the classroom. Is that part of the curriculum guide? Or
in some of our other units, which I don't have pulled up now, there is a little more clear demarcation of, this unit this activity is better suited for classroom instruction because of the need for certain materials. But in any other year, we would have all those materials available for them, on the cart, and it wouldn't be as much of a concern. I think to that particular question, I think I could have pulled a better example. So this one, it says, can be presented by the teacher and completed by the students at home during live meeting. That's the performance tasks. So in this one, they are specifically saying that they do believe that this Mad Hatter activity could be completed by the students during home if they were. So in this case, they're saying that the performance task could be done at home.
Also, in the instruction section of this one, all of the highlighted DLs are taking the in-class lesson and showing the modification for how it can be delivered virtually. So that's a piece that would not normally be in in their minds as they're writing curriculum, because obviously we usually deliver it at school. So a lot of the revision that was done this year in all subject areas across all grade levels has that kind of, this is how this lesson could be delivered either online, or here's something kids can do asynchronously at home instead of being in school, if that makes sense. So curriculum writers kept those limitations in mind as they were going through. And if I'm a second grade teacher, I already have in here how I can modify what I'm teaching tomorrow for my kids that are sitting at home.
yeah,
So
you're
that's-
answering my question. That's what I was wondering, how the teachers would be provided that information on the guide. So you said that there was a place on this actual guide where you highlighted which ones were
all of,
options?
yeah. John, can you scroll down? All of the highlighted, it's short, but all of the highlighted DL, so anything highlighted in yellow, shows how the lesson above it can be modified for kids that are at home and not in school with access to the materials and or the teacher. And sometimes it's simple modifications, which would be great if we could, but for some subject areas, it's a little bit more, there's more modification that has to be done depending on the lesson. So.
Okay.
So for instance, that first one, if students have Lego bricks at home, they can share the build during a live class meeting. Alternately, the teacher can model the concept for students using other materials at home, right? So they could have other materials that they'd use instead of Legos if they didn't have them to represent the same concept.
Thank you.
Joyce, any questions?
No, I think it's interesting that we've had to add that. And very useful, I suspect, for the future.
So
That's the hope.
I have two questions. I have two questions related to this. With actually the screen you're on right now, the slide with the you clicked on the link, like how could you build a house out of paper?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was actually, if you don't mind doing that again, and then you can see what okay, perfect. So the exploration 12 minutes, hand-on activity 30 minutes, and wrap-up 3 minutes, that would all be completed in one sitting, correct?
Not necessarily.
No, okay.
Sometimes we would break it up. So sometimes we might do a little bit more of the exploration. They might stop and initiate the activity or explain it, and then be assigning it for asynchronous instruction, like something they're completing, and then they're bringing in a following day for wrap-up and discussion. So they wouldn't always necessarily follow the time on here because it may not fit with the instructional block of time, because for that day it might not be a day that they're meeting for 45 minutes. And there's days that these could go longer because sometimes the discussion kind of leads where you're going. So they really would use these over a span of 2 weeks. So they might use a portion of this a day, use the activity, have it lead into another piece, and they might actually be doing kind of the wrap up on this another day, or maybe even 3 days later, depending upon how they're breaking it up for their students.
I see. Okay, very good. And then, like what's highlighted in the beginning on the materials needed page, now I understand, like, you know, Legos are not going to be relevant to, I mean, they could, but I understand why they wouldn't be relevant to my question. But say a child did not have certain material needed, I'll just pick one out, like a clothespin at home. Is that something they could pick up when they're in school and bring back home? Or?
Yeah, most of the time they're really flexible with the materials used. And I had actually ran into this with an activity. My daughter was in 4th grade last year. We were looking at a mystery science unit that was provided for her asynchronous instruction, and I was facilitating that with her. And it was building a car that was powered. It was like using a soda straw, 2 rubber bands, 2 paper clips, and plastic disposable cup lids. We don't have disposable cups in our house, right? So we just made like cardboard circles, right? It would be something similar. We would just, students can substitute if needed for completing those activities. And the teachers are going to be very flexible. You might not need a clothespin in order to do it. That might be something that we'd facilitate because it's a object that's in our Imagineering carts in the room, which are their carts that have the materials to support the instruction. But they're pretty flexible with what materials the students can use and substitute. It's really just, we're not focused on it being using the particular materials, just getting the same concept across.
Right. Yeah, no, I only asked because, you know, obviously if things were under normal conditions and every kid was in school at the same time, this isn't an issue because, again, like you said, the cart's provided and has all the material that you would need on that. So I guess it just boils down to flexibility,
right,
given the conditions we're under. So
and there are materials going home. For instance, grade 3 STEAM has a flight unit. And so we did send home the paper glider portions in a bag, right? So the teachers put together the materials that they were going to need for that unit, and they'll be working on it for a period of time. So they were provided the paper material for the wings and the fuselage of the glider they're going to build, the clips and so on that they'd normally get in school, and that was provided to everyone on their on the day that they're in person, and was made available for pickup for the students who were going to be fully remote. So there is a little bit of that going on, not necessarily for this grade level science activities, but throughout the schools, providing materials that are needed in order to facilitate the curriculum.
Right. Yep.
Awesome.
And flexibility is the key word, but like John said, we do have certain materials that were sent home for each grade level that are common, that can be used among different subjects. So, we took that into consideration as well.
Great.
Any other questions about the science or anything?
No, not on my part.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
All
John,
right.
anything else for John Dake? He's welcome to stay, but I'm also going to let him not stay if he wants to start heading out.
I guess if you're leaving, John, and that's perfectly fine with me, do you want me to follow up with you, or do you want to follow up with me regarding the?
Yeah, so now that you've seen the unit, I will need to get in touch with the grade 4 STEAM teachers in order for them to get access to that new curriculum unit. I normally have access to grades 6, 7, 8, not through high school. I will get access to grade 4, and then we would just need to schedule a time to have you come in and we can review it in the building.
Okay. So again,
So
you want me to give you a call next week, or you want to follow up?
Yeah,
with me
if
when
you
you're all
could,
set?
if you just want to send an email with your availability next week, I will follow up with a.
Great. I will do that tomorrow morning.
Great. Thank you.
And
Thank you
before
very
you
much.
leave, I would just like to say, with the again conditions we're under, the work that has gone into, and I wanted John to hear this as well. The work that's gone into all this is incredible. What you guys have pulled off, and I've talked to some of the parents regarding how distant learning is going and everything else, and they said it is night and day compared to what was going on in the spring. So all praise goes to you guys for all your hard work and making all this stuff adaptable. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would say that teachers and all administrators really played a part. You saw an example of a group of teachers that did curriculum writing and took those considerations into what they were doing. And I know that they're working very hard every day in the classroom to make sure that things are being delivered to all students. So thank you.
We really appreciate all the teachers' input in making these revisions.
Yep.
The teachers were the ones who led the curriculum revisions that you saw for science. The STEAM teachers were the ones who suggested the revision to the curriculum and put together a PowerPoint presentation for us to explain how they would think that this would align to standards and how they could better facilitate this than the existing unit. And even the resource for child development was, coming from the teachers saying, with the changes we need to make to the child development lab, this is something that I think could help, support instruction. So it's really the teachers get a lot of the credit for making the initiative to make these adjustments. So.
Yes, they do.
Well, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
All right.
Yeah, thank
Good
you,
night.
John.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
All right. Next item up is number 5, items from the table. Bill or Joyce?
I had a thought, it's slipping away all of a sudden.
You had a thought, but it went away. You'll be thinking of it. We'll log off, and then it'll come back to your.
That happens to me a lot, Joyce. Don't feel bad.
Okay, it came back.
Okay.
You've got curriculum prepared with supplementary information as we've just seen.
Yep.
Are there any restrictions on additional software that teachers individually may choose to use?
Yes, because they really do have to go through. This is not like they have to go through Guy and the technology department for individual software, because a lot of what I don't know the whole thing, so I can't really speak to it. I'm just going to say that yes, there are some restrictions, and the restrictions may be because it's something that we don't support, and a lot of companies put out free resources and paid resources. And if you don't buy the paid resources, sometimes with the free resources, there tend to be some student privacy issues. So anything that is supported by us is being put on the iPads. If it is not there, they do have to go through Guy Barassa. Those aren't decisions. If I want to use a resource, like Mystery Science was one that came from the teachers. So we went and we purchased it, because we couldn't really use the free resource. There's dangers to that. So we went and we purchased it and as a teacher recommendation. I have gone to Guy and done that, but individual teachers, they have to go to Guy.
And can it be an individual teacher using it, whereas the other teachers in that same grade and subject would not be using it?
I would say no, because our curriculum has resources in it. And if they're teaching our curriculum, that's how Mystery Science started. I would say it depends on the resource, but I would say no, there shouldn't be one teacher using one resource unless they're a singleton teacher and they are the only one that can use that resource and it's been approved. So any resource has to be approved, and Guy, it will come to me if it's a curricular resource that we don't already have. But they're all money and they have to be aligned to the curriculum.
The reason I'm asking that specifically today is that I got some information from Donors Choose, and one of the local teachers is requesting a particular software to be used, and it would, if I understood what it was going to do correctly, would enable the teacher to bring in a variety of different videos from whatever source to be used in the classroom. And I did notice that it could be used with Teams without a problem there. So that's a possibility. But that would have to be approved before it was purchased. Is that correct?
Well, if it's not something, yeah, I mean, Donors Choose, I don't know at what they go on and do on Donors Choose. So yes, it would have to be approved because they're not going to put it on these school issued iPads if they're not going to support it. So that's an issue. We had somebody go on Donors Choose a few years ago and order, I can't remember if it was Chromebooks or something else, but our IT department's not going to support those. So it's not helpful. So again, these are conversations have to be had with technology people and curriculum people for that to be made accessible on the iPads.
Okay, we've got rules and regulations. That's good.
We're supposed to.
Being in IT, I can tell you that people find ways, but that's a very interesting question from Joyce. Because I was under the impression, in this case in particular, Joyce, and to your point, I was under the impression that videos, in order to be displayed on the iPads, had to come from the safe YouTube site, as opposed to just the broad YouTube, right? And I don't know what that particular application that Joyce is referring to, or that this particular teacher is referring to, if that would allow these videos, because at that point in time, you're opening Pandora's box, right?
Exactly. It's all about student privacy and safety. Yep.
Yeah, and so yes, from an IT perspective, I know that you can put that kind of limitation. But I hope it's not something that people are able to get around. I'm sure I know Guy, not my best friend, or I've known him for years, but I know enough of him to understand and appreciate the fact that he takes this very seriously. And I hope people are not doing something to circumvent the process.
I second that emotion, and that's where I'm going to end it.
Yeah. Well, if I may just add something, I read last week of, as you know, where you probably know, we came from California originally, and I was reading how the school district in San Diego, which is a fairly large school district, was successfully sued by parents because they were presenting a curriculum that was had not gone through the entire approval process. Apparently, there was at the level that they were implementing, they needed also state approval, and then they had circumvented that process, and the whole district was teaching something that they shouldn't be teaching. And so I guess everybody was in on it, but it was a circumvention of the process, So yeah, it happens.
Yeah, we have standards and requirements we're supposed to meet. So.
But there's also a level of frustration when you can't get it when you want it.
I agree. I understand.
All right. The only other thing I think would be deciding on when our next meeting will be held.
I
think
actually have one on the, there's one on the calendar
Is there?
and it's
Okay.
for, yeah, it's for October 15th. Are we hopeful that we can meet in person again?
Well, that was going to be the follow-up question to that as well. I'm perfectly fine with that. If everybody else is comfortable as well.
I will say that we can,
What's that, Joyce?
I said her office is big enough to keep us separate.
and I was actually going to say that we could even use the professional development conference room on the first floor of this. That gives us even more room to spread out and has a big screen as well for projection. So there are rooms in the building that we can actually even spread out more if that's a concern for anybody. So I'm just not sure if the town's doing live meetings again or whatever, but our next meeting is supposed to be October 15th at, I believe, 6 o'clock.
Okay, perfect. I know because town
Yes,
council is meeting next week in person, and I'm sure the regular Board of Ed meeting will be following up in person as well. So between all that happening, by the time we get to October 15th, we will have had hopefully in-person meetings. So I think
Okay.
we should aim for that if we could.
I'm
Sounds
all in.
good to me.
You can count me in.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty then. Well, motion to adjourn.
I want to say hi to Walter before we go. Hi,
Oh,
Walter.
yeah, there he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just sitting here listening, but I just wanted to say hi. Thank you, Michelle, for everything you've done over the summer. And yes, I hope we get to live meetings soon because I got knocked out twice just sitting here. So
Yeah, no, and I know John, you all could see John's screen about 10 minutes before I could, and he was 2 doors down from me in the same building.
yeah,
So,
this nightmare shall end, I hope.
yeah, hopefully. So,
Thank you again.
thank you.
So was there a second to your, there was a motion, I believe, to adjourn?
Yes,
Was
well,
there a motion?
forgive me.
No, there
you
wasn't.
gotta bear with me on my first meeting. But
You can't make the motion, John.
no, correct. So
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
at least there's only 2 of you, so it's a lot easier. All right. Well,
Okay.
we'll see everybody on October 15th then.
Okay, well,
Sounds
thanks,
good.
everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
night.
All
Have a
right.
great night. Bye.
Bye, guys.